The billionaire's bet turns into shock when his new bride reveals a hidden truth. The wager. The calculated man Dominic Ashford stood at the apex of the Ashford Tower, the city of Manhattan spreading beneath him like a kingdom of glass and steel. At 32, he had built an empire from code and ambition, transforming a small software startup into a tech giant worth billions. His reflection in the window showed a man sculpted by success, tall frame wrapped in a custom charcoal suit, dark hair perfectly styled, and eyes the color of storm clouds that rarely revealed emotion. But tonight, those eyes held something unfamiliar: restlessness. The annual Vanderbilt Charity Gala hummed with life 40 floors below, where Manhattan's elite gathered in their finest jewels and designer gowns. Dominic had no interest in such spectacles. After his ex-fiancée Victoria had betrayed him by selling company secrets to his competitors while warming his bed, he had learned a brutal lesson. Love was a liability. Trust was a fool's currency. Everything and everyone had a price. And Assistant James knocked softly before entering. "Mr. Ashford, your car is ready. You're expected at the gala in 20 minutes. Dominic didn't turn from the window. "Tell me, James, why do people still believe in love?" James hesitated, accustomed to his employer's philosophical moods. "Perhaps because hope is easier than cynicism, sir. Hope is expensive." Dominic grabbed his coat. "Let's get this over with." The misunderstood heiress across town, Celeste Monroe, sat before an ornate mirror in her family's Fifth Avenue mansion, barely recognizing the woman staring back. The emerald gown hugged her curves perfectly. Her chestnut hair fell in waves across bare shoulders, and diamond earrings caught the light with every movement. To the world, she was everything money could buy: beautiful, privileged, and utterly careless. If only they knew the truth. "You look acceptable," her stepmother, Patricia, said coldly from the doorway. "Try not to embarrass the family tonight. Your father has important investors attending." Celeste's jaw tightened. Since her mother's death 5 years ago, Patricia had transformed their home into a gilded prison. Her father, consumed by his pharmaceutical empire, barely noticed his daughter's existence unless she caused a scandal, which, admittedly, she did often. The tabloids loved her. Celeste Monroe crashes another party. Wild Monroe heiress spotted at exclusive club. Celeste's latest shopping spree breaks records. Each headline was carefully orchestrated, every scandal a deliberate performance. If the world saw her as frivolous and empty, they wouldn't look deeper. They wouldn't discover the homeless shelters she funded anonymously, the children's hospital wing bearing her mother's name, or the nights she spent volunteering at soup kitchens disguised in hoodies and jeans. Her rebellion was armor, her reputation a shield. "I'll behave," Celeste lied smoothly, applying crimson lipstick. "Wouldn't dream of disappointing Daddy." Patricia's eyes narrowed, but she said nothing, leaving Celeste alone with her thoughts and the crushing weight of expectations she had no intention of meeting. The fateful encounter. The Vanderbilt mansion blazed with light and laughter. Crystal chandeliers cast rainbow prisms across marble floors, while a string quartet played softly in the corner. Dominic accepted a glass of scotch from a passing waiter, scanning the crowd with practiced disinterest. "Dominic!" a familiar voice boomed. Trevor Sinclair, an old college acquaintance turned hedge fund manager, approached with a shark's grin. "Hiding in corners? That's not the killer instinct I remember. I prefer observation to participation." Dominic sipped his drink. Trevor followed his gaze to where a woman in emerald green held court, laughing too loudly while champagne sloshed dangerously in her glass. Ah, the infamous Celeste Monroe. Beautiful disaster, that one. Daddy's little nightmare. So I've heard. Dominic's expression remained neutral, though something about the woman intrigued him. Beneath the theatrical laughter, her eyes held a sharpness that contradicted her party girl persona. "I'll bet you $1 million you couldn't tame that wild thing," Trevor said suddenly, alcohol loosening his tongue. 3 months to turn her into a proper lady. Think the great Dominic Ashford is up for the challenge? Dominic should have walked away, should have recognized the dangerous game Trevor proposed. But Victoria's betrayal still stung. leaving him hollow and hungry to prove something. Perhaps that he could control anything, even the uncontrollable. 2 million, Dominic countered, his voice cold. And she becomes my wife. Trevor's eyes widened before he laughed. Deal! This I have to see. Across the ballroom, Celeste felt someone watching. She turned to find a man studying her with unsettling intensity. Dominic Ashford. She recognized him from business magazines and society pages. The tech billionaire with ice in his veins and a reputation for ruthless deals. Their eyes locked, and something electric passed between them. She smiled provocatively, raising her champagne glass in mock salute. He didn't smile back, simply nodded with a predator's patience. Celeste should have felt warned. Instead, she felt intrigued. The proposal 1 week later, Celeste sat in a minimalist conference room inside Ashford Tower, staring at the man across the mahogany table. Dominic had requested this meeting through her father, who had practically shoved her into a car, thrilled that someone of Ashford's caliber showed interest. Marriage. Dominic slid a leather folder across the table. For 3 months. Celeste blinked, then laughed. Is this a joke? I don't joke about contracts. His expression remained infuriatingly calm. Your father is forcing you into an arranged marriage with Richard Hawthorne, a man twice your age with questionable business practices. I'm offering an alternative. Her laughter died. How did he know about Hawthorne? That engagement was supposed to be secret, a deal her father and Patricia had arranged to merge 2 pharmaceutical empires. The thought of Richard's clammy hands and leering smile made her skin crawl. Why would you want to marry me? Celeste asked carefully. We've never even spoken. I need a wife for business purposes. Social appearances, investor confidence, that sort of thing. You need an escape from an unwanted marriage. It's a mutually beneficial arrangement. He opened the folder. You'll live in my penthouse, attend events as needed, and maintain the appearance of a devoted wife. After 3 months, we divorce quietly. You receive $5 million and your freedom. Celeste scanned the contract, her mind racing. The terms were generous, almost too generous. What's the catch? No catch. Just a business transaction. His storm-gray eyes met hers. Though I expect you to behave appropriately. No scandals. No tabloids, no embarrassments. Something in his tone sparked her defiance. He saw her as a project, a wild thing to be tamed and displayed, just like everyone else. But this time, his arrogance might actually work in her favor. If she married Dominic, she'd escape Richard, and if she played her cards right, she might even teach the cold billionaire a lesson about assumptions. I have one condition, Celeste said, leaning forward. This marriage stays strictly professional. No expectations beyond what's in this contract. A flicker of something. Surprise? Crossed Dominic's face before disappearing. Agreed. Then you have yourself a wife, Mr. Ashford. She signed with a flourish, sealing both their fates with elegant script. Dominic watched her signature form, feeling an unexpected jolt of something he couldn't name. He had thought this would be simple. Marry the wild heiress, prove his point to Trevor, collect his winnings, and move on. But as Celeste looked up with those intelligent green eyes hiding behind a mask of indifference, he realized he might have miscalculated. The game had begun. Neither of them knew who would win. The wedding. 2 weeks later, Manhattan's elite gathered at the Plaza Hotel for what society columns called the wedding of the year. White orchids cascaded from crystal vases, champagne flowed like rivers, and photographers jostled for position to capture the unlikely union. Celeste walked down the aisle in an ivory silk gown that cost more than most people's houses, her father's hand rigid on her arm. She barely heard the whispers. Such a strange match. Do you think it's real? She must have trapped him somehow. Let them talk. In 3 months, she'd be free. Dominic waited at the altar, impossibly handsome in his tuxedo, his expression unreadable. When their eyes met, Celeste felt that same electric current from the gala. Dangerous, intoxicating, terrifying. The ceremony blurred past, vows spoken without emotion, rings exchanged like business cards, a brief kiss that felt more like a signature on a contract. When the officiant pronounced them husband and wife, neither smiled. They had both gotten exactly what they wanted, or so they thought. The reception proved exhausting. Celeste played her part perfectly. The adoring bride, hanging on her husband's arm, smiling for cameras. Dominic played his too. The devoted groom, protective and attentive. Only when they were alone in the limousine heading to his penthouse did the mask slip. "That was quite a performance," Dominic said, loosening his tie. "I'm very good at performances." Celeste kicked off her heels, flexing her aching feet. "It's what you paid for, isn't it?" Something dark flashed in his eyes. "I didn't pay for you. I paid for a service." Semantics. She stared out the window at the glittering city. "Either way, we both know this isn't real." But as the words left her mouth, Celeste felt an unexpected pang. For one moment during the ceremony, when Dominic had slipped the ring on her finger, his touch had been gentle, almost tender. She had seen something in his eyes that looked suspiciously like vulnerability before it vanished behind his usual cold control. She shook the thought away. Dangerous thinking. This was business. Nothing more. The penthouse elevator opened directly into Dominic's home, a sleek modern space with floor-to-ceiling windows showcasing Manhattan's skyline. Everything screamed expensive minimalism: leather furniture, abstract art, a kitchen that looked unused. "Your room is down that hall," Dominic said, shrugging off his jacket. "Mine is the opposite direction. We'll maintain separate spaces." How romantic. Celeste grabbed her suitcase. "I'll try to contain my disappointment." She should have gone straight to her room. Should have ended this strange wedding night with professional distance. Instead, she found herself asking, "Why did you really propose this arrangement? And don't give me the business line. Nobody needs a fake wife that badly." Dominic paused, whiskey glass halfway to his lips. For a moment, she thought he might actually answer honestly. Then his expression shuddered. "Good night, Celeste." Unveiling truths. The revelation. The wedding night air felt thick with unspoken tension. Celeste stood in the master suite, her temporary prison of luxury, staring at her reflection. The wedding gown suddenly felt suffocating. She unzipped it, slowly, letting the expensive silk pool at her feet. A soft knock interrupted her thoughts. "It's open," she called, assuming it was staff. Dominic entered, still in his dress shirt and trousers, holding 2 glasses of champagne. His eyes swept over her before he quickly looked away. She wore only a silk slip now, her hair tumbling free from its elegant updo. "I thought we should toast," he said awkwardly, extending a glass. "To successful business partnerships." Celeste accepted the champagne, amused by his discomfort. The great Dominic Ashford, flustered by a woman in her undergarments. "To profitable arrangements," she countered, raising her glass. They drank in silence. Dominic's eyes kept drifting to her, then away, as if fighting some internal battle. The air between them crackled with something neither wanted to acknowledge. "You're staring," Celeste said softly. "I'm not." But his voice lacked conviction. She set down her glass and crossed to him, her bare feet silent on the plush carpet. Standing close enough to feel his warmth, she looked up into those storm-gray eyes. "You think I'm easy, don't you? Just another rich girl who parties too hard and gives herself away too freely?" Dominic's jaw tightened. He didn't deny it. "Then let me shock you, Mr. Ashford." Celeste's voice dropped to a whisper, her next words calculated to shatter his assumptions. "I'm 26 years old, and I've never been with anyone. Every scandal you've read, every wild story in the tabloids, all carefully crafted fiction. I'm still a virgin." The champagne glass slipped from Dominic's hand, shattering against the hardwood floor. His eyes widened with genuine shock, the first real emotion she'd seen crack his facade. "That's impossible," he managed. "The tabloids, the parties, the lies." Celeste smiled bitterly. "All of it. Every scandal was me creating a persona so terrible that my father and stepmother would leave me alone." so people would stop expecting me to be perfect, so they wouldn't look close enough to see who I really am. Dominic stared at her as if seeing her for the first time. His carefully constructed assumptions crumbled. Why are you telling me this? Because you need to know that whatever game you think you're playing, whatever bet you made with Trevor Sinclair, yes, I know about the bet, you have no idea who you're actually dealing with. She watched color drain from his face. He hadn't expected her to know. Good. Celeste, he began, but she cut him off. Save it. We have 3 months to pretend to be married. Let's at least be honest with each other behind closed doors. She turned away, suddenly exhausted. You can go now. I need to sleep. Dominic stood frozen, a dozen emotions warring across his usually controlled features. Finally, he nodded and left, closing the door softly behind him. Alone, Celeste let out a shaking breath. She had revealed her biggest secret to a man she barely knew. But something about the way he looked at her, really looked at her, had made her want to strip away the lies. She only hoped she wouldn't regret it. The discovery over. The following weeks, life in the Ashford penthouse settled into an uneasy routine. Dominic left early for work and returned late. Celeste spent her days maintaining her public persona while secretly managing her charitable work. They attended required social functions together, playing the devoted couple convincingly enough that even the skeptical tabloids began believing the romance. But everything changed. The night Dominic came home early. He entered silently, tie loosened, after a grueling day of meetings. The penthouse was dark except for a light in Celeste's room. He heard her voice, soft, comforting, speaking to someone. Curiosity overrode propriety. He approached her open door. Celeste sat cross-legged on her bed, laptop balanced on her knees, wearing glasses he'd never seen before and an oversized sweater. Her hair was pulled back messily, face free of makeup. She looked younger, softer, completely unlike the glamorous woman who'd signed their contract. I know the surgery is expensive, Mrs. Chen, she said gently into her phone. But that's why I'm calling. The children's wing will cover all costs. Your daughter deserves the best care. No, it's not charity, it's humanity. You're welcome. Give Lily my love. She ended the call and immediately opened a spreadsheet, her fingers flying across the keyboard. Dominic glimpsed columns of numbers, donations, grants, medical expenses. This wasn't the work of a careless socialite. How long have you been standing there? Celeste asked without looking up. Dominic stepped into the doorway. Long enough. Mrs. Chen's daughter. Is that the little girl with the heart condition? I read about her case in the Times. Yes. Celeste finally looked at him, defiance in her eyes. The Monroe Children's Medical Wing is covering her surgery. Anonymously, of course. The Monroe Children's Wing. Dominic's mind raced. You funded that wing, not your father. My inheritance from my mother. She left me everything. $30 million that Patricia and my father can't touch. I've been using it to fund things that actually matter. She closed her laptop. Surprised? Constantly, Dominic admitted, entering the room fully. Who else knows about this? Just my lawyer and accountant, and now you. Celeste studied him warily. Are you going to tell people? Why would I? To win your bet with Trevor. Show everyone you transformed the wild heiress into a proper philanthropist. Her voice dripped sarcasm. Dominic flinched. That damned bet haunted him now. What had seemed like a game felt increasingly cruel. I wouldn't do that. Wouldn't you? Celeste stood, crossing her arms. Isn't that exactly why you married me? To prove you could control something? To show the world that Dominic Ashford conquers everything, even untamable women? The accusation stung because it was partially true, but standing here, seeing the real Celeste, intelligent, compassionate, fiercely private, Dominic felt something shift in his chest. I was wrong about you, he said quietly. Completely wrong. Most people are. She moved to the window, staring out at the city. It's easier that way. Easier than what? Than letting people see the real me and having them leave anyway. Her reflection in the glass looked suddenly vulnerable. My mother was the only person who truly knew me. After she died, I learned that letting people in only leads to pain. Dominic understood that pain intimately. Victoria's betrayal had taught him the same lesson. What if, he began, then stopped, unsure how to continue. Celeste turned, her eyes questioning. What if we tried being real with each other? Dominic finished. No masks, no performances, just honest. For the next 3 months? For however long. This lasts. Something unspoken passed between them, a tentative agreement, a fragile trust. Celeste nodded slowly. Okay, let's try being real. That night marked a turning point. Dominic found himself sharing things he'd never told anyone. His fear of vulnerability after Victoria, the pressure of maintaining his empire, the loneliness of success. Celeste revealed her own wounds, her father's indifference, Patricia's cruelty, the constant performance of being someone she wasn't. They talked until dawn painted the sky pink, discovering they weren't so different after all. Both were hiding behind carefully constructed walls, both afraid of being hurt again, both longing for something genuine in a world of transactions. As sunlight streamed through the windows, Dominic realized with startling clarity that his fake wife was becoming dangerously real to him, and from the way Celeste looked at him, really looked at him, he suspected she felt it too. The conspiracy, but outside their growing bubble of understanding, darker forces gathered. Patricia Monroe had not spent 5 years positioning herself as Manhattan's premier socialite to let her stepdaughter escape. Celeste's marriage to Dominic threatened everything, especially the planned merger with Richard Hawthorne's pharmaceutical empire. In an upscale restaurant downtown, Patricia met with an elegantly dressed woman whose beauty couldn't hide the bitterness in her eyes. "Thank you for meeting me, Victoria," Patricia said, sipping her martini. Victoria Sterling, Dominic's ex-fiancée, smiled coldly. "When you said you wanted to discuss Dominic Ashford's unfortunate marriage, how could I resist? I understand. He broke your heart. He destroyed my reputation." Victoria's manicured nails drummed the table. "After I ended our engagement, he systematically ruined every business deal I had. I lost everything." Patricia leaned forward conspiratorially. "What if I told you we could both get what we want? I need Celeste out of that marriage and back under my control. You want Dominic to suffer. Go on. Celeste has been hiding her charity work for years. If we expose it the right way, make it look like she's been embezzling from her trust fund, conducting fraudulent donations, the scandal would destroy her. Dominic would divorce her immediately to protect his company's reputation." Victoria's eyes gleamed. "And I provide evidence that Dominic knew about the fraud all along, making him complicit. His company's stock would crash." "Precisely. With Celeste's reputation destroyed and no husband to protect her, she'll have no choice but to accept the marriage to Richard I arranged. And Dominic," Patricia smiled viciously, "will finally understand what it means to lose. What do you need from me?" "Access to Ashford Towers servers. Dominic must have financial records we can manipulate. Plus, your testimony about his character will be invaluable to the press." Victoria extended her hand. "You have a deal. Let's destroy them both." As the two women shook hands, sealing Celeste and Dominic's fate, neither noticed the waiter who lingered nearby. James, Dominic's loyal assistant, who heard every word. The storm was coming, and neither Dominic nor Celeste had any idea how much their fragile new beginning was about to be tested. 3 months had seemed so simple at the start, a business arrangement with a clear end date. Now, as genuine feelings began blooming between them, the timeline felt like a death sentence. Could their marriage survive past the contract? Could the truth of how it began ever lead to real love? More importantly, could they protect what they were building from enemies who wanted nothing more than to tear them apart? The game had changed. The stakes were no longer about money or pride. Now they were playing for their hearts. The truth prevails. James burst into Dominic's office the next morning, breathless. "Sir, you need to hear this." He played the recording of Patricia and Victoria's conversation. Dominic's face darkened with each word. Before he could respond, his phone rang. Celeste, her voice shaking. "Dominic, the news. They're saying I've been stealing from charity funds. It's everywhere." "I know. I'm coming home. Don't talk to anyone." When Dominic arrived at the penthouse, he found Celeste standing by the window, tears streaming down her face. "My entire life's work destroyed. Everyone thinks I'm a fraud." He pulled her into his arms. "We'll fix this. I promise." Working through the night, Dominic's legal team gathered evidence proving the allegations were fabricated. James's recording exposed Patricia and Victoria's conspiracy. By dawn, they had everything needed to clear Celeste's name. At a hastily called press conference, Dominic stood beside his wife, holding her hand tightly. "My wife has been the victim of a malicious conspiracy. Here is proof of her legitimate charitable work spanning 5 years, helping hundreds of families anonymously. The accusations against her are completely false." He played the recording. Gasps rippled through the crowd as Patricia and Victoria's voices filled the room, plotting their destruction. "I also have a confession," Dominic continued, his voice steady. "Our marriage began as a business arrangement, a foolish bet I made. But somewhere between the contract and today, something real happened. I fell in love with my wife." He turned to Celeste, his eyes glistening. "You showed me that vulnerability isn't weakness, that trust isn't foolish. I don't want this marriage to end in 3 months. I want it to last forever. If you'll have me, truly have me, I'm yours." Celeste's tears fell freely now, but she was smiling. "You arrogant, impossible man. Of course I'll have you. I love you too." Their kiss sparked camera flashes, but neither noticed. The world faded away until only they existed. Epilogue. 6 months later, Patricia faced fraud charges. Victoria fled the country. Richard Hawthorne's business dealings were investigated, revealing extensive corruption. Celeste stood in the newly expanded Monroe Ashford Children's Medical Center, no longer hiding her philanthropy. Dominic stood beside her, their fingers intertwined as they cut the ribbon together. "No more secrets," he murmured. "No more walls," she confirmed. That night, in their penthouse, truly theirs now, not just a temporary arrangement, Dominic pulled Celeste close. "Best bet I ever made," she laughed. "Worst bet, best outcome. I love you, Mrs. Ashford. I love you too, Mr. Ashford. For real this time." Their kiss held all the promise of tomorrow, genuine, honest, and built on the strongest foundation of all truth. What began as a transaction had transformed into the greatest love story neither of them saw coming. Sometimes the best things in life start with the worst reasons. And sometimes, taking a chance on someone means finding exactly what you didn't know you needed.